Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today in this video we are going to discuss about Terraform remote modules. In our last discussion we have discussed what are Terraform modules, how do you define your Terraform module to start with it, and now in this video we are going to discuss if you would like to write a centralized module repository for your various Terraform projects, and how do you write those remote modules which you want to keep it into a centralized repository. How do you write the configuration of your module, and how do you define the Azure DevOps CI/CD using those remote modules? Hi, my name is Rakesh Suryavanshi and you are watching Be a Learner. Before I start the discussion, it's my humble request to subscribe to my channel and watch all the available contents on the topics like Azure, Terraform, DevOps and Kubernetes. Without getting further delay, let's start our discussion. Just to recap our last discussion about the Terraform module, we have discussed that to define a resource with the help of Terraform modules, you can declare the module keyword and then define the location of your module. In this case, we have specified the location is the same project where we have our Terraform repository project, which we are using for provisioning the infrastructure, and then usually you provide the attributes to your module going to be used to provision the resources. In this case we are creating the Azure storage account. This was the last discussion we had about the declaration of module and how do you use the module in general. Now, as I said, this topic is more about a scenario wherein you have all your modules into a different repository, or let's say a team who is responsible for creating the modules and they are keeping all the modules into a remote repository, and now you have a Terraform project which you would like to develop using that particular module repository and provision your infrastructure as code, which means that instead of targeting the source location as a local location or the local path of your file directory, you may want to target to a remote location or remote repository location. So let's see how do we do that. So I'll show you the setup which I have for my remote module location. For this demonstration, we have the CI/CD Terraform repository, which is the repository which I have opened on my Visual Studio Code. So you can see that we have an infrastructure folder, and here we have the main.tf and variable.tf file. Now, as I said, I have a dedicated repository for all my Terraform modules, which I'm calling to create the different Azure resources with the help of Terraform. So this is my Terraform repository, which is created under the same DevOps project. But if it may possible, your organization may wants to keep this particular repository into altogether a different projects itself. So you can have a different project for Terraform modules, and then you may want to target that particular repository in that project and then provision your resources. So you can see that I have a repository, under that I have a folder, modules, and then you could have a various module folders. Let's say for this logical storage account, I have a module called storage account. I could have another module called key vault, virtual machine, Kubernetes, and so on. So you can create multiple modules here in this particular repositories like that. Okay. Now, question is, how do we call that? So there are two options. If you are using the modules on your local machine, for example, then you can use the Terraform module, or you can refer the Terraform module with the help of HTTP endpoints of that particular module. For example, you can copy this particular location, which is going to be this HTTPS modules, and obviously after that it's going to be the name of your module. So I'll just copy this and use this particular file path as in location. Obviously you need to specify git :, and then the HTTPS path of your module location. Obviously this is the repository location, but we would like to target a specific module here. So I will say Terraform modules, then what is the folder name I have? under this I have the folder name modules. So I'll copy this and then use it like that. So you can see that the source location, now I'm specifying the get with HTTPS and the location of the remote location of the storage account module. Now if I'm going to basically run the Terraform init, then it should basically download the module onto my local machine with the help of my get HTTPS credentials. So it will use my local get credential. It means that the remote repository should have, the Git user should have access to that module repository in order to download the module code into the local machine or the machine where we are running the Terraform initialization command. And another point here is you need to run the Terraform initialization command after you change the source location of your modules every time. So let's try and test that if it downloads the modules. At the moment, under the infrastructure, I do not have any other folder or files such as the .terraform. So let me see if it creates a .terraform file or folder. So I'm running Terraform init, and you can see that it's trying to connect to the HTTPS location and trying to download that particular module. And you can see that it has created the .terraform directory, and under that .terraform directory, it's going to download that module. And as I said, it's going to use my get credential to connect to this particular get repository location and download the resources. And you can see that it has downloaded the module. Here in the .terraform directory, you have the modules folder, and under that you have the storage account module folder where it has got all the files located. Okay. Now you can see that the initialization is completed, and if I run the Terraform plan, it will successfully execute. But this is on my local machine. What if I run the same code as is and try to run my pipeline? Will it work? Well, possibly it will not work, because at the moment, while running the Terraform initialization command on my local machine, I have the access to both the Git repository with my Git credentials. And that's the reason I'm able to download the module when I run the Terraform init command. It's able to download this particular module with my Git credentials. Try to run the automation pipeline or your Azure DevOps CI/CD pipeline. Then how do you make sure that it downloads the module like it is downloading it right here on my local machine? Let's see how do we do that. So the other option to make it possible is you use the source, as in Git HTTP, instead of HTTPS, you use the SSH way of downloading the module. So such as, so this is the format: Git :SSH and then git@ssh.dev.azure.com. This is the general website URL, and then version v3, and the name of your organization, which is virtual learn in my case, name of the project under your organization, and then the name of the repository / the folder, and then a module under that particular folder. So this is what the location is going to be. Now the question is, if it is not able to use my HTTP credential, HTTPS credential, then how come it would be able to download with the help of SSH credential? Because SSH will also requires an SSH key. If you're thinking like that, then you are quite right. It won't work as is with the help of this particular code. For that, you need to make sure that while this particular block of code runs, or the Terraform initialization command runs, you need to have the SSH setup ready to make it possible, to make it run. So for that, you need to create the SSH key and then upload that particular SSH key into Azure DevOps project, and then establish a trust relationship using that particular SSH key between your Azure pipeline and the remote repository. I'll show you how you do that. So let's first of all create a SSH key. To generate the SSH key, you can use the SSH-key generation or keygen -c, and then provide the email address for the user which this particular key belongs to, or basically the administrator user. Once you provide the value, press enter, and then it will ask you enter the name of the file which you would like to give for your SSH key. If you don't want to give any name, you can press enter. Then the default name, which is id_RSA, will be created under .ssh folder under the user location of your file. And now I can give the password phrase. So this is the password phrase which I have given. You can leave it as is if you don't want to give the password phrase, but in production like scenario, you don't want to leave your SSH key without a password. So it is always the best practice to provide the password for your SSH key. And you can see that we have a unique random GUI for our RSA SSH key, which has been generated by the SSH key generation utility exe. And now if I go to the location, I should have the SSH key file available. You can see that we have the file available here, right? And which is created just a moment ago. Now this particular key generation file has two parts. One is the public key, which is going to be used for the communication, which will have the public key token, and then you would have a SSH key with a private key token, which is a password phrase or a unique encrypted token to validate this particular public key when somebody is calling for basically handshake. So I'll show you just the content of the key. So this is the private key. As you can see that the content itself begins with open SSH private key, and this is the private key phrase which is going to be a secret for your, and this is the public key content which belongs which shows that this particular key basically belongs to this particular user. Next step is to upload this particular key into Azure DevOps project. So I'll copy the public key data. I'll go to the Azure DevOps project, and from the Azure DevOps project you can click on this user icon, and there is a SSH public keys. You can see that I have some SSH public keys already uploaded. So you can give it any name. So let's call it as an remote module, and then provide the name of content of your SSH key. So by default, the expiration date of the SSH key is for the 5 years from now. So that's step number one. Now, under the same project, we need to upload the private key. And to upload a private key, we are going to go to the libraries under the pipeline section. And from the library section, you have the secure file option where you can upload the secure file. I already have the file uploaded, so I'll just delete this because it is going to conflict with the same name. So I'm going to upload this particular private file which has the password phrase for the SSH key. That's going to be uploaded, and it's going to be secure. Even I can't see the content of this particular file if I would like to open it now. So this is the way you should be uploading the file here. Now the next thing we need is the Azure host entry for this SSH key. So basically host entry is basically we would like to generate for the host. In this case our host is Azure DevOps. So we would like to generate the host entry key for using the SSH scan command. So you need to provide the key command as an SSH key scan, and you need to provide the name of your host entry. Host entry is going to be this particular domain which we have used. So that is something which you would like to copy. So I'll create another variable group. Let's call it remote module. And I'll add the remote host. Host, that's the name I would like to give. Let's save it for now. We'll update if requires later on. You can make it secure by clicking here. For this demonstration, I'm just leaving it as is. So let's look at the pipeline. So this is the simplest pipeline I have. wherein I'm just targeting the remote repository. This is the name of the repository, which contains our Terraform module. I have certain number of variables which I'll be using in the pipeline, and then under the pipeline stages, I just have a simple stage to validate the Terraform initialization Terraform plan command, because I just wanted to make sure that when I run the Terraform init and plan, it basically generates the plan. It means that it's able to download the remote modules and able to initialize the Terraform command the way I'm doing it on my local machine. That's the whole objective. So not super complex. So basically here in the stages or steps, I'm downloading the self repository or this particular repository itself, and then basically using the checkout, and then I'm checking out the remote repository which has the module. So you can see that the repository name I have given as a module, and which is of type get. So here, interestingly, what we are doing here is basically we are installing the Terraform with the specified version given in the parameter section. And now here we are using the install SSH key task, which is basically going to use the SSH key so that it can basically connect to the SSH, basically it can provide the SSH connection to the remote repository. And here what we need is the known host, which is the host name which we have just now stored in our variable group. So if I go to the remote location, so that's the remote host basically. And then next what we have public key. So the public key ID. By the way, you can store all these values into the key vault, but just for this particular demonstration, I'm not storing anywhere in the key vault. I'm just storing it right here. But in an ideal scenario, you may want to store this information into the key vault and read it from there. Okay. And then the password phrase, basically, I would like to give it the password phrase as is. So let's see. I've given for this demonstration, and then the name of the SSH key file name. Okay, so using this input information, it will provide the SSH connection, and using that particular SSH connection, which will be available onto the location, it will basically able to download the modules. Now, one more thing to note it down here is I'm using the variable group which I have just now created. So I need to use this particular variable group. We save this, and this is going to be our variable group. That's the name of the variable group which we have created. Okay. Now if I commit this, it should basically download the module. If not, then we'll figure it out why. Let me commit the changes. That should push the changes to the remote location. So now let's create a pipeline, a new pipeline using that particular repository. So that's the repository CI/CD. Use the existing pipeline, and we have the existing pipeline. Yes, we have. Let's see, is this the same pipeline? Yes, this is the same pipeline which we have just now modified. Now let's try and run it if it works. So you can see that it is trying to connect to both the repositories. So under the repository section, these are my repositories which are specified on my pipeline, and under this is the basically only stage I have. So you can see that as I have used the install SSH key task, and if you are running very first time, then it will basically ask for the permission. So you need to have appropriate permission for running this particular pipeline. Let's run this. Let's see if it works. So basically it has checked out both module and CI/CD, and now it has initialized the remote repository as well. You can see that this time it's downloading the Terraform module of the storage account using the git SSH, and it has downloaded the SSH module under the .terraform module .terraform directory, like you might have seen on my local machine. It's the same way it has downloaded the storage account module under the same folder. And now if I run, show you the Terraform plan, it is basically running the plan with the storage account, where it is trying to show that we are ready to create a storage account with the help of that particular Terraform code. So now just now we have demonstrated how do we configure a remote module with that particular configuration. Now you might be asking, let's say if you would like to version your modules, then how do you prevent falling into an error? If let's say some developers are working on Terraform modules on the module repository, they might have done some changes which is kind of error prone changes, and now if you're trying to use the latest code on your module on your code, then it might fail, which is obviously a reason it will fail. So it might possible there is a requirement wherein you would like to always target on a specific version, a specific chain set. Then how do you do that? So to make that particular thing possible, what you can do here is you can on your module, what you can do here, you can create the tags to your repository basically, and then from the I'll go to the tag, create new tag, and then let's say from where you would like to create a tag. So I would like to create a tag as a v1.0, for example. That's the tag of my version. So let's say initial tag, and once I do that, this is my initial version of my main module. So now I can basically specify the version like that. Okay, so instead of specifying the actual version, I can use it like this. So git SSH and then refer the version like that basically. Okay, so this is how basically you define your module, or you can specify your module to a specific version with the help of different tags. You can also use the specific chain set, but I won't recommend using the chain set. People often uses the Terraform or the remote repository tags, specifically if you are using Git. I hope this demonstration was helpful. If it is, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next interesting video about Terraform soon. Thank you very much.